And many thanks for coming out this evening for what will be a very timely and important workshop. And after listening to the Kavanaugh hearings all day, this idea of public accountability and where the money comes from is so essential. So I think this is a great way to end what has been a very difficult day for many of us. Before I introduce Jen Armstrong, I would just make an announcement about a lecture series we're starting. The first speaker, Kate Mann, will be here a month from today, Thursday, October 25th. We have flyers in the back. I'm happy to sort of hand this out as well. And Kate Mann has written a book called Down Girl, The Logic of Misogyny. And it has basically gone viral, including her term, himpathy, which has become an essential tool or term for the feminist toolkit. And himpathy is the undue sympathy, the excessive sympathy we give men in power. And she has an incredibly poignant editorial and op-ed piece in today's New York Times on Brett Kavanaugh and himpathy. So I really encourage you to check that out. Again, she'll be here a month from today, Thursday, October 25th in Clemens 120. For today's event, I'm grateful to Anne-Marie Butler, our graduate assistant, who suggested today's workshop and coordinated today's event. So thank you, Anne-Marie. The Public Accountability Initiative is a nonprofit, nonpartisan watchdog research group focused on corporate and government accountability. They are particularly focused on bringing transparency to the role corporate power plays in shaping public policy. The PAI got its start in 2009 by launching LittleSis.org, and I found out today where the origins of that great name came from. It's the opposite of George Orwell's Big Brother in 1984. And LittleSis.org is a database and research platform that tracks connections between powerful people and organizations. And LittleSis is used by journalists, academics, and activists researching and challenging networks of power and influence. PAI is headquartered in Buffalo. I didn't realize that. With staff in Philadelphia, New York City, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and a network of volunteer researchers and editors around the world. Now, Jen Armstrong joined PIA shortly after moving to Buffalo in 2013. As Deputy Director, she is responsible for an array of power research, skills training, and staff development. Prior to moving to Buffalo, Jen spent several years in the bike industry to recover from her research roles at Media Matters for America and George Mason University's Institute for Conflict Analysis and Resolution. And in her spare time, she organizes with Showing Up for Racial Justice in Buffalo. Please join me in welcoming Jen Armstrong to the Elite Gender Institute.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's been great. We're watching the Kavanaugh hearings not like at the staff meeting here, but in their office. So I think focusing on following the money is something we're going to do together tonight. I'm sure there's some hot eye during this hearing that you're interested in knowing whose interests they're actually serving. By the end of this workshop, you'll have a few more tools in your toolkit to figure that stuff out. So, as you can see, I like to include effects from the low key 5 for this stuff. Research is difficult. It's good to have this sort of comfortable setting as you start to get into things. Tonight, I'm hoping we can spend a little time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that we do at Little Sis, a little bit about what is power research, like where does it come from, some of the origins, and then why we do it, how it's used in activist organizing for believers in not doing research for research's sake. We want to do research that is actionable and accessible. And then we're going to jump into, I hope folks brought computers, jump into actually learning to do some of this research ourselves. We're going through an array of different campaign finance databases on the federal level and the state level, so you can start to dig up this information for yourself. And then I'll go into actually turning this information into what we call power maps, so you can better communicate it with folks who might not have as much access as you do to the internet, to computers, to your university. You can actually tell a story about what you're finding. So to start, just a little bit about who we are. The Public Accountability Initiative is our Buffalo. And we do sort of three main things at PAI. The first one is research. We do sort of public interest, corporate government accountability research. We call this power research. We'll get into why we do that in a bit. But what that ends up looking like is a lot of follow the money, conflict of interest, who knows who, and really exposing how deals are actually done, and deals that sort of shape our public policy, economic policy, and environmental policy a lot of times. And our research tends to focus on the oil and gas industry and the finance industries, two big scions that kind of dominate our economic system. But we touch on a lot of other different industries as well. Tech is another big piece of what we do. LittleSis.org is a database that you can go to right now if you wish. It's the opposite of Big Brother. We classify it kind of as a involuntary Facebook of the 1%. So you can actually go to it, type in someone's name, a person, or an organization. And if our analysts have been researching that person, you'll get a nice, it's almost like a LinkedIn profile of who they know, who they've given money to, where they, it is like LinkedIn. So LinkedIn of powerful people. And so the name, being the opposite of Big Brother, the idea, of course, is that Big Brother is this powerful entity watching down. Little Sis is supposed to be a community of folks who are all working together to watch back at the powers that be, holding folks in power accountable. It's a wiki, so anyone can sign up and join, just like Wikipedia. It's like a second source research tool, so much like Wikipedia, everything has to be sourced out for a particular framework to be added. And I'll show you guys how to actually start adding stuff to the database. And then the last thing we do is training, so we're really focused on what we call democratizing research. We think that everyone can be a research expert where they are, especially when it comes to holding powerful people accountable. So we strive to build research capacity and do as many trainings and skill trainings as possible to sort of spread this knowledge so folks can start getting this information out there. So I'm going to be talking and using the word power to an annoying degree, and so it's good if you're in a research setting or academic setting to define your terms. That's one thing I remember from undergrad. You want to do that right away. So in talking about what is power research, we define power as the ability of an individual or an entity to do what it wants against opposition and to shape politics and society along their interests and priorities. And we call folks who have this type of power the power elite. And this is very different than if folks are coming from a community organizing background. When people who are community organizing talk about power, they're talking about people power, right? This is power that is concentrated in the hands of a very small group of people. People power is about getting power into the hands of the larger group of people where it actually belongs. So when I'm talking about power, I'm talking about this sort of pernicious, condensed power. And so power research then is sort of investigating who the folks are in this sort of power elite and covering the relationships between them, the different connections between them, so you can sort of see how they're able to continually consolidate and wield their power. And so this is actually one of our diagrams up at the top, which is Steve Mnuchin, our dear beloved Treasury Secretary from Goldman Sachs. We've had many Treasury officials from Goldman Sachs. You can go on LittleSis and see plenty of maps about that. And then you can see some of the art from Mark Lombardi, who's a famous artist. We actually modeled our data visualization tool off of his artwork. And he did very ornate hand-drawn connections between different, very similar like a power mapping, different systems, people and organizations and how they're connected. You can see them in the system, We're a little less ambitious with our parts. So the question, this is one of the benefits of doing a training on my own. I get to make a slide deck. So, one of the questions is what's the big deal? Why do we want to know all the relationships one of the good answers is something that we can even see with this Kavanaugh hearing that we were all painfully aware of over the last several weeks, is that the priorities of the circle of power elite are consistently prioritized over the common good. Their priorities set our economic and social agendas, and in fact set it to such a level that we can't even fathom different economic systems existing at this point. This is just a short list of some of the bigger aspects of the corporate agenda. But the people who we see pushing this stuff are elected officials, administration officials, people with a lot of sort of in the mechanisms of a traditional sense of power, people who are like signing the bill. Those people are backed by money and access provided by a whole different group of people who you never see, right? That's just basic campaign finance. And so our goal here is to sort of bring those people to the fore and highlight them as the true beneficiaries, the true actors and who are driving this agenda. It's not just the people that we're all putting into office, right? And so the whole idea is to move up the food chain, find those people, find what their agenda is so we can actually fight back in a more strategic way. Some water here. Does anyone have any questions about that first little? Cool. So this is a little bit of the theory behind what we're thinking about when we talk about the power elite. Is anyone aware of the sociologist William Domhoff? He wrote a very famous book in the 60s called Who Rules America. So Who Rules America, actually I just learned recently, was a bestseller in 1967, which you can barely imagine such a thing happening today. But in that book, he was really arguing that the ruling class in the United States were not, again, these elected officials, but folks who were operating in these sort of three different spheres of society. And so we see this little Venn diagram here. Just right. So we have three different sort of spheres where these upper social class are all sort of operating and moving between. So we have our social upper class, these are socialites or jet setters. Jet setters is like a old school term for when flying used to be highly unaffordable to the masses. So people who were jet setters or people who could afford it. So that's like our ultra wealthy super upper class. And then we have the corporate community. These are the executives of big corporations, big multinational corporations, CEOs, members of boards of directors, folks who, and a lot of these CEOs and different directors across the different corporations actually serve on each other's boards. We call them interlocking directorates. It's a way to consolidate their agendas, political and social agendas. And then we also have the policy planning network, which includes sort of consultants, think tanks, any sort of nonprofit board that's setting public policy agenda, influential universities, and so folks who are sort of higher up in those circles. And one good example is, who writes the federal budget every year? Folks know who wrote the budget last year. So the Heritage Foundation actually wrote the budget. That's an extremely conservative think tank based in DC. And so those folks are the ones who are actually crafting and handing off to the public officials what they are then going to go and try to sell to the American public as their brand ideas. So, these circles obviously overlap. The members in one sphere might belong to another sphere. And so this is sort of what when we're thinking about who are the power elite, who has power. This is again looking up the food chain to sort of this diagram, these types of folks. And so we want to start sort of, and so we have here Donald Trump surrounded by an array of finance figures who have sort of the social upper crust who made it into his administration. And so we have when we're trying to get started with research and we don't even really know who actually has power where we live, there's these sort of sets of questions that you can ask yourself. And these are things when we're working with organizers who are trying to develop targets. Maybe they have a hunch about why a certain public policy is getting pushed forward. These are sort of the things that we start to run through to start identifying folks. So the first one, who benefits? The economy is rigged, but it's rigged in favor of somebody. And so who are the folks who are prospering at this time of rampant income inequality? Who governs? And again, this is looking up the food chain past our elected officials. Who are the folks who are actually setting public policy? Who's writing the stuff and handing it to them to try to push through? Who's setting local policy? Whenever we see a large group of sort of business folks, academics, anyone like that sort of all on the same board, it could be an innocuous nonprofit that is in charge of water cleanup. If you see a large collection of these folks, there's something happening there that's beyond what's actually occurring on paper. And so when we call those sort of power boards, and a lot of times we think when we see these big collections of folks all together, this is where business is really being done. There's a lot of overlap of interests. They're all there for a reason. And then who wins? So this kind of takes us back to our original definition of power. So who is able to advance their interests against the opposition. And then just who has a reputation for power. That's like the most simple one. You don't have to be a deep researcher to come up with that. We all live in our community, and there are people who you just know have a reputation for having power. So these are the four sort of indicators to get going when we're thinking about who is it we want to start power mapping and start looking into. And so then the question is, who rules Buffalo? Who's from Buffalo in this room? I've been here for enough years to have a sense, but yeah. Why don't we, because I've been talking too much. I'm a researcher, I don't talk this much usually. What if, that's probably it. If we're looking and thinking about, and this can actually be a good kickoff point for our power mapping, if we're looking at these questions and thinking who rules Buffalo based just on any of these, it could even just be reputation, and we're not talking about elected officials. Who would we throw up here?
Pagula, the owner of the...
Pagula.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Why is Pagula a powerful person? Who is Pagula herself?
He's the owner of the Bills, the Sabres, and one thing other team.
Yeah. He's extremely
Tony, is it
rich.
Tony? I can't remember what it's called. I remember his first name.
Terry.
Terry.
Terry Kim.
How did he make his money?
That's a great question. How did he make his money? Does anyone know?
Fracking.
That's right. He was fracking in Pennsylvania. So he's got a ton of money. A bunch of stuff here. So owns a ton of real estate also. Who else?
Paladino?
Paladino. Dave. Why is Paladino? For those who don't know.
He was on the school board.
Yeah.
He's also a developer.
Big developers.
Real estate.
Like mini. He is. That's what we call him. Every town has one.
What is that?
Mini Trump. Mini Trump. Everyone has a mini Trump. So several boards, developer. He's a perfect example of someone who just always manages to rise to the top against his seemingly best efforts. Who else?
Sinatra.
Yeah. Sinatra, another developer. What's an example of his power?
Well, I know he's building new
story come out from a local scrappy research organization that he owed approximately 1.2 million in back taxes, which he framed as a business strategy. This road was all over the Buffalo News. Meanwhile, he was still able to get a break on a real estate deal from the state. It's a great example of power.
Little Sis wrote that story.
Yeah, about his taxes.
There's talent.
Well, you're breaking our rule, but since he's
Sorry.
hopefully going to be a soon-to-be former, what's his power?
Well, I think he's the 14th wealthiest person in Congress, in both House and Senate. And he's also the representative who is currently in the district that surrounds Buffalo and is under investigation for insider trading companies that he invests in.
Nate, and you know the therapeutics. Yeah. It's insider trading. Can't do that. Even if it's not. Anyone else? Got a couple of developers, got a fracker. Carl Montante. Who's Carl Montante? Senior or junior?
Or senior. They're both involved with legal land development. Senior owns the junior's president or something like that. That's what we're here to find out.
Okay.
Are they related? Not that it's two, we have this.
Uniland, of course, is the owner of the Delaware North building downtown where there are ICE offices located. Site of some activism last year.
Ongoing.
Time. What is it? What is time? Okay. So that's a good sort of little brainstorm session. If anyone has an idea of someone else, feel free to shout it out. There's more names up here. But this gives you a sense of when we're thinking about what is actually giving someone their power, right? We want to start thinking about what are the different things we want to research about them. Where are they actually touching that like keeps them in this elevated status? The developer class is across the board one of the top ones to start looking at in any city. So this is my answer, which since we're at UB, might as well use a UB power example. Does anyone know who this is?
Yeah, he's on, senior is on, emeritus.
Jeremy Jacobs, Sr. He is the owner of Delaware North, which is the main tenant of Uniland's building downtown, where the ICE offices are. Jeremy Jacobs is, he's worth about $4 billion. Delaware North is, if you don't know it, go to any national park except Yellowstone. And that was a joke for really nerdy researchers. Go to any national park, you can go to our airport, you'll see Delaware North, they're a big concessions company, they're everywhere.
All the stops on the 90 are owned by them.
Yes.
Every time you stop on the 90, he's named.
Really?
Yeah. Almost inescapable. Jeremy Jacobs himself is worth around $4 billion in changes. Big Trump supporter, donated over $100,000 to Trump Victory, which is one of the committees. He, Delaware North hosted Kellyanne Conway when she was here a couple years ago for a $5,000 like fundraiser luncheon. Some of us were there. He's also sits on the chair of the UB Council, which is the Presidential Advisory Council. And he's the chair emeritus, or something emeritus, of the UB Foundation, which is what the sites will spend their money. So he's a great example of someone who, he's got all of our connections, he's a corporate elite, he's in policy planning networks, got his hands in the biggest member of the Sunni system. He's got his name on a bunch of your buildings downtown, especially one big one moving over Allen. Big donor. We can actually look up his donations and see that he, even though I've highlighted Trump here, he actually donates across the political spectrum. This is from Business Move. And he is someone who really typifies the sense of power, right? He's someone who has $4 billion, but still was able to threaten Buffalo City into giving him almost $1 million to renovate his new office, which he decided to move down to corporate offices. I don't want to oversell it. It's not like his personal office, but when Delaware North wanted to move down the block, down from Chippewa to where they are on Delaware and Chippewa, he threatened is a strong word, but persuaded the officials that he might have to look somewhere else for a new corporate headquarters if they didn't give them a tax subsidy to build out this new space in Uniland's building. So of course, we can't do without them. We gave them $800-some thousand for that. So that's an example of the whole thing. So now for some uplifting information. How can we actually take this information and make it actionable? So as we're starting to look this up, as we're doing this power mapping, how can this stuff actually strengthen our organizing or activism so we can start to shift things in some way? So the big thing that I keep saying over and over, because it's sort of like a hard one, I think, lesson in my work with this, is to keep looking up the food chain. Again, I know I've said it so many times since I've been here, but sometimes the most obvious target is not the right target. It might be you think that this person pushing public policy is the one you need to be going after. They're not picking up the phone for you. They actually probably getting that person out of office might not really make a significant difference. Going up the food chain and seeing who are the forces that are continually pushing forward that corporate agenda can be a more strategic, long-term organizing strategy. Shifting the narrative. So again, much of the time, the folks who are actually benefiting from policies are sort of sitting in the background. If we can change the narrative to shine the light on them, I'm going to show you a great example of that, then we can actually include and implicate them in struggles. And then, corporations are pretty savvy. They like to, so Nike is a great example here. They know how to grab a moment and really get people thinking they're on your side. They can shift with the political landscape. They're really good at that. That's why they have the staying power. Corporations have staying power. Doing this type of work can help you kind of shine a light on these structures that not that much is actually changing when it comes to as they're shifting their message. Are they actually shifting their tactics or their agenda, anything like that? And then finding ways to connect with other campaigns. A lot of the times we're up against the same people and we don't even know it. There's a great example I'll show you of a guy in Boston who touches on both the charter school movement and austerity, fighting austerity and the debt crisis in Puerto Rico. And through research, they're able to connect these two movements, which can help strengthen our community power, good power, right? And then just finding cool, creative action opportunities, like this guy who dressed up like a swamp monster and went to one of Steve Mnuchin's art galleries that he owns in New York. So this is actually, I want to give a couple of examples of how power research has been used in organizing, just for a little sort of more uplifting inspiration. This is a historical example. This is not a new sort of concept we're talking about here. So are people familiar with SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee from the Civil Rights Movement? Very famous organizing coalition that did the Freedom Rides, really aggressive voter registration efforts all throughout the South. And something that folks are less familiar with about them is that they actually had a whole power research board in their group, and anywhere they went to start to organize in the South, they did a complete sort of power analysis wherever they went, so they could see, what were the big corporations, who knew who was sitting on which boards and get a sense of who actually held powers that would help inform their organizing. And this is actually a great quote from James Foreman, who was one of the SNCC founders. He wrote the book, The Making of Black Revolutionaries, and Julian Bond, who's another member of SNCC, wrote this forward, and I can read it out here. So for them, power structure was no abstract phrase for SNCC's band of brothers and sisters, but a real list with real people's names and addresses, and descriptions of assets and interlocking directorships, demonstrating how large interests ranging from Memphis and New York banks to the Queen of England might own at least partial control of a plantation in Mississippi's Delta. Knowledge of who owned what was crucial to SNCC's strategies. From it, we knew that Southern peonage was no accident, but rather the deliberate result of economic policies determined thousands of miles away from the cotton field. So that's just some grounding in how this research informed organizing in this huge moment for this amazing organization, SNCC. And this is an example of something that's happening today, just yesterday. A coalition of organizations that were researching the financial institutions that underpin private prisons. A large coalition started going actually to those financial institutions, delivering something like 400,000 signatures, asking them to stop financing these prisons. And so just to back up for a second, this is an example of, a great example of sort of moving up the food chain. This might not be the right target thinking, because this all started, we started researching geo and core civic progressively during the family separation crisis earlier this summer with Trump's immigration policy. And thinking from an organizing standpoint, we can research geo and core civic all day, but what's actually going to be actionable for people, right? You're not going to go up to your local geo prison, like you're a person on your lunch break, right? But you might go to your local bank. You might change the way that you run your finances. And so what we did was went through and looked at all of the different banks that offer credit lines and debt financing to these two main private prisons and sort of highlighted them, because the way these prisons are structured, they're actually legally structured as real estate investment trusts. It's kind of a boring way to say that they can't hold any amount of money. They have to, everything that they take in, they have to give out to shareholders. So they rely wholly on credit for their day-to-day operations. And so really these banks, they couldn't operate without these banks. So they're very pivotal. So the idea here was to sort of bring up, and some of these are consumer-facing banks. Some folks may have Wells Fargo accounts. God bless you if you're still hanging on for some reason there. But really focusing on these folks, which are consumer-facing, which are actionable targets, right? Anyone can go to their local branch of their bank. So that makes it a good target. It's easy to understand why we want to go after these folks, and it seems accessible to folks. And I love this headline because it's just so, the advocates were attacking the banks for financing private prisons. So this is actually from about a month ago, but again, just yesterday, there were another wave of actions for folks going to local branches and doing actions there, delivering these petitions, asking Wells Fargo and JP Morgan, specifically those two, to pull out their financing agreements with the prisons. So, with that, and talking so much, have you seen research in a campaign that you can name? Chances are you have, but maybe pointing it out is difficult. So I put a couple of examples up here. One is the Harvard divest from Valpost. Valpost is the hedge fund that owns $1 billion of Puerto Rico's debt. They tried to hide it under a bunch of LLC names. We were able to identify them. Turns out Harvard is also a big investor with this hedge fund. And so the student activists there were able to take this up and run some protests and actions. trying to get Harvard to pull out something like $2 billion they have invested with them, threatening developers to pull out of Puerto Rico's debt, or Harvard would remove their investment. The other one here is related to the Dakota Access Pipeline. Are folks familiar with that one? So this is another example of people looking at the financial institutions actually backing this stuff and saying these are the folks that are making this whole project possible. We want ourselves and our city governments to actually divest from these banks. And some organizers were able to pull out billions of dollars from Wells Fargo as a result of this. We'll talk through sort of a quick rundown of some of the theory behind this stuff, what it is, and how it's used. So now we're going to get into how to actually and so, the first one we started doing here, ask yourself those questions, identify who has power. The second one, start investigating their power networks. Who are they? What's their agenda? What do they care about? And we do that by identifying parts of their, what we call their power network here, which we'll get into. Then the last step, we think, is to make it accessible, make it actionable. And so we'll get into how to use the LittleSis database, which is publicly accessible, and our data visualization tools. You actually can create visual maps of the information that you find, which pictures speak a lot louder than words. Much more accessible. So when we start researching someone, this is a beautiful diagram of what are some different pieces of a network that you might want to know. So you have to start with a person. You want to know what their work positions are, what their nonprofit positions are, what their political contributions are. Are they a member of different social clubs? Do they have social relationships? Where did they go to school? Are they active at that school? What are their investments? And each one of these things are things that you can find out with publicly accessible data to some extent, and piece together to get a sense of a person, or you could easily put a corporation in here too, their power network. So I'm going to go through a few different types of databases that are available. And we're going to actually focus on just a certain subset of these. We don't have that long here. But in the handout that I gave you is our little map of power zine. There's actually a great rundown of a bunch of different tools that you can use to piece together this information. So we like to think of it as like there's three basic types of research databases you can use. There's disclosure databases, and there are databases that clean and organize data, and then there's databases that aggregate data. So our first disclosure databases, these are going to be your government databases, right? So you have the SEC, which is where publicly traded companies are going to be putting their annual filings, all their information about, this is where we cleaned all that information about which creditors were offering lines of credit to these private prisons. Those private prisons, you can buy stock in them if you want. Those are publicly traded entities. The SEC, these filings, they basically have to declare everything. One of the reasons that the Attorney General Eric Schneiderman was able to start to go after Exxon, one of the grounds was that Exxon had not disclosed to their shareholders that they were aware of climate change at this certain point, from the 60s, 70s. And so the rules around disclosure are so broad that they were able to actually bring in like Exxon related to not disclosing this to their SEC filings. And then you have the Lobbying Disclosure Act database, which is sort of the federal lobbying database. You have the FEC. Are folks familiar with what lobbying is? Does anyone want to give a definition of lobbying?
I'd like to hear one.
What's that?
I'd like to hear one.
Let's
Review.
So, lobbying is when you are a consultant. You could also be an in-house lobbyist, and you are hired by a company or interest groups, particular interest groups, to go and talk to our elected representatives about your issue. And so notably, some of the best lobbyists, the best highest paid lobbyists are folks who used to work in government. They know everybody, they know who to talk to, right? We call these revolving door folks. Because they moved from the public to the private sector and they're now trading on the information that they got in the public sector. So those are lobbyists. Then we have the FEC, which is where you'll get your federal campaign finance data. So for example, the New York State Board of Elections here is where you'll get your New York State specific campaign finance data. Every state has one. They're all different. We'll talk about that. And so these are some examples of the straightforward disclosure databases, lots of rules, government regulation. Then you have these nonprofit databases that are taking that information and actually trying to put it in the way that you want to look at. So opensecrets.org, we're going to look at that one. That is aggregates and cleans up federal level campaign finance and lobbying data, as well as a lot of these revolving door profiles. So we'll be looking at that one. Follow the Money is a state-by-state campaign finance data. They have a really tough job. They got 50 different databases that they have to try to consolidate. So we'll look at that a little bit. It's a little bit rough, but it can be useful when you learn it. And then ProPublica, which is a research outfit like us, but they do a nonprofit explorer tool where you can go in and look at the 990s of all kinds of different nonprofits in a really accessible way. And then there's aggregate tools like LittleSis, where you can take information from all of these and put it all in one place. So now, I was thinking we can go through and look at a few of these different databases before we start using the LittleSis tool and actually putting it together. So we'll start with the federal level first. Has anyone ever visited the FTC website? So I think the best way to learn this stuff is to start from the bottom. Open up your Google browser of choice and just Google. You can do FEC.gov, it's Federal Election Commission database. FEC.gov. Be able to see that. So this is actually a really beautiful version of their website. We're lucky that we've got this beta version here. So what you want to do is actually get to the tool where you can start looking up. In campaign finance, we're talking about donations, people giving money to politicians. Just be clear about that. So what we want to do here, we want to go to the campaign finance drop-down. And we have a few options. You can explore all data, which is a good place. I like using the lookup contributions from specific individuals, like that. And so then you can't really see on the side here. There's a way to make this smaller. So I'll choose the toolbar. See the little filter toolbar here down. So you can put either a recipient or you can put a contributor. Who should we look up? Terry Pula?
Sure.
So let's put it, I think he probably goes by parents for a couple of reasons. So we'll put his name in here. We're going to do our transaction time period. Let's actually do 2015 to 2016. You can actually, a great benefit of this website is that you can put in a few different names and it'll search for all of them. There we go. Let's see if you put it into So we can see some management services. That's this book. So they're based in Florida. They are based in Florida, even though they operate up here. Patronage is Pennsylvania, so it makes sense. So you can see here this list. I think that this is the kind of rule that we're looking for based on everything I know about them. And you can see here who the recipient is, what state the contributor is giving from, their employer, when the donation was made. This is really great to look at after someone's gotten a big deal. And you can actually click some of these to get a little more information. I'll list it out here. Let's do someone I know who's got a lot here. Get rid of these guys. And so now we just have Jeremy Jacobs Sr.'s donations from 2015 to 2016. You can see, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy's got a huge company. He's got a lot of pockets to fill around the country. So we can see here, here's the $100,000 donation to Trump victory. It would be nice to have $100,000 period. So this is a good tool, and this is the disclosure database. So this is where you're going to be able to find this information first, right? Pull up.
But it seems to be only for 2 years, is that right?
Right.
History.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where Open Secrets really shines. So that you can pull these up year by year. You can actually export them. So you can actually, if you're interested, it's easier for you to look at this in a CSV format, like an Excel format, you can do that. Let's see if we've had any recent ones. Oh, there's only one from 2017 to 2018 is to our friend Chris Collins, College for Congress, last November. So that's sort of a quick rundown of how to look up by person. Are there any questions about this? You really got to know who you're looking at here for this one. You can also go to, if you wanted to go to the Explore All data, you have the option of looking up candidate and committee profiles or looking up specific contributions. So let's just do one that we all know. So you can select, you can see from the drop down here, I've entered in Donald Trump. So candidates and committees can take in different levels. So we have, yes, Trump is a liar super PAC. Surprisingly doesn't have a ton of donations that I was able to see yet. Anyone can register a PAC if you wish under most names. So here you can see the candidate profile. There's limits on how much you can give to a candidate. It's $2,700 in each race, so $2,700 in the primary, $2,700 in the general, which means that you get these big mega contributions like that $100,000 to a campaign or a PAC. So it's a much freer reign on the amount of money you can give to those. So here, let's just select Donald J. Trump for President Inc. We can see here a nice rundown of this account. Total receipts has about $50 million in the bank. We can look about this committee, get where the mailing address is, who the treasurer is. We can see who they've raised from. We can see how they're spending their money. Show this one. And so on. Very fun to play around with. Seeing how money is spent is a good one, especially because we know that Donald Trump loves to reimburse himself for his own movements. I don't mean to pick on anyone. I'm trying trying to resist the entity that we're talking about earlier. So this is the FEC database. It's like very straightforward, federal campaign contributions. That's where if you just want to know how someone's leaning, how someone's giving their money on the national level, this is where you go. Now, if this, if you want something, I think that database is relatively easy to navigate, but Open Secrets, pulling in all of that information as well as all the federal lobbying data. So here you can go to their search bar, it's just opensecrets.org. You go to their search bar, let's look up Jeremy Jacobs again. So what you want to do here is just navigate over to donors. And you can see they've only got, 35 records here. They have it parsed out by money to parties, money to candidates, so it's coded a little bit. I personally think that this database is best used when researching the contributions of companies, or if you want to see how a company's employees have all donated en masse to a particular organization or a particular person. So you can look up this. I think FEC, just pro tip, is a little bit easier for the individual, but if we wanted to look up Delaware North, for instance, which is Jacob's company, we can type them in, go to organization, go to, so there's a bunch of different profiles here. We just want to go to the top one, their main organizational profile. And we can see here, this is just for the 2018 election cycle. Let's do 2016, this will be a little more compelling. We can see how much money was contributed, how much money they spent on lobbying, and then how much was outside spending, so just like outside for like dark money groups. They have these nice breakdowns. You can see here, it says 7 out of 8 Delaware North companies lobbyists for this period have previously held government jobs. And you can actually get to, if you go to their lobbying tab here, you can see how much money they spent over time. This is how many dollars they've spent hiring people to lobby the government. And if you go to their full lobbying profile, you can sort of navigate around and see which firms they were hired, and then if you just sort of keep following, you can see, again, usually you can get to the individual lobbyists. This one has that. Here we go, lobbyists. So we go to the lobbyists and we just do the old find, Command F, do Delaware North. We can see which individual lobbyists are actually responsible for representing Delaware North to the federal government. And so whenever we see this little icon here, that means that this person is what they call a revolving door lobbyist. So you can actually navigate to that page, and you can see you can see their work history and where they were previously employed in the government. So this person, who is this, John Foskey, was previously Deputy Director of the Mineral Management Service and Deputy Director of the Department of the Interior. So sometimes this can give you a little insight into why these folks are interested in hiring these particular lobbyists. So this person with Bureau of Land Management, a lot of interest in land issues. I think who oversees the National Park Service? Is that Interior? Yeah. So Delaware North is concessions for National Park Service. It makes sense that they want lobbyists with connections there, right? Great. So this is Open Secrets. It's pretty. I definitely encourage going in, putting in your also go to recipients. This is recipients of donations, and so here again, we're looking at Delaware North. And it's going to show us the top recipients for this time period, which is 2018. And this represents not necessarily direct contributions from Delaware North, although Delaware North has a pact and will donate. This represents donations from different employees that have listed Delaware North on their FEC report, saying that that's their employer. Open Secrets takes that data and posts it, condenses it, so we can see that Delaware North and its employees favor press ballot. Any questions about these two federal tools?
I tried entering in Johnson & Johnson Political Action Committee. I noticed I put Ron Buffalonian Dukes that regularly. So I tried entering it in on Open Secrets, Johnson & Johnson, and nothing came up. They said we have nothing on this. So I was,
So I'm going to go and say, as a overseer of a database, that ampersands are horrible. So I want it could be something about the name. How about the New York State Board of Elections? Were you guys really into this, or back to? So New York State Board of Elections. I'm just going to do that one because we're here. And like I said, there's 50 different ones, so let's just be where we are. New York State Board of Elections homepage. If you want to look for different states' campaign finance database, just Google the state and then campaign finance, and it's sure to pop up. So if you Google that, you go to election.newyork.gov, and you want to navigate to, this is a little tricky, if you want to navigate to the database, you go down to campaign finance, here, click it, and then you go down to view disclosure reports. And so you get all these nice little links here. And so you can click on view contributions and expenditures. And that takes you, gives you a few more options where you can look at, again, just like the FEC database, you can look by candidate and committee, or you can look by contributor. So let's do contributor here. This one is a little more, you have to add a little more in. So let's put Jeremy Jacobs. Oh, just Jacobs here. Jacobs. Data contribution. That's a pretty nice wide search here. Minimum. That wide too. Submit query. And it pulls up this sort of list for us. This is everyone with the last name Jacobs who's donated over the last 8 years. Just to be a lot of folks. I can do Jeremy here and get to our list of Jeremy Jacobs. Now this isn't listing the senior or junior here, which could make our job a little more difficult. But you can actually navigate right to the filing page. Those are the reports. I can show you those in our database. But this gives you a sense of, you can look up a wide time frame and see it all at once. The issue with this is that you can't download this data. You really have to work off of this page and sort of just add it up yourself, but you can reference this. This is a great source. That one. Have you guys, anyone used the New York State campaign finance database before? No, sorry. So then, like I said, there's 50 different of these state databases. So Follow the Money has taken on the unenviable task of trying to consolidate from all 50 states from their campaign finance databases. So this is just followthemoney.org. And you can, again, because this is a sort of secondary database that's striving to clean and organize data, it's not going to be as like up to date as like the New York State Board of Elections database. So like, does anyone remember during the primary when all of a sudden there were tons of reports about Andrew Cuomo getting 69 $1 donations from one person? Did anyone hear about this? Should have been a bigger scandal, but because reporters knew when these filings were going to drop, they were all over the New York State Board of Elections database and were able to see, because you see how they're like condensed by name. There's a whole thing in politics about having lots of small dollar donors. Andrew Cuomo does not have a lot of small dollar donors. So someone in his campaign got their roommate, it seems, to donate $1 and $2 donations, a large amount of them, and it was visible on the campaign finance database. Not a lot of people thought that. Anyway, but so journalists and folks who are reporting on politics like that are waiting for those filings to drop, and that's where they're going. They're not going to follow the money here, but they could. So follow the money is a tool that you would use to, if you're looking up a particular state politician, that's how it's best used. So if we were looking up, is there like a politician from a home state?
Politician James, request for Attorney General.
Okay, so politician James, there we go. Candidates. So, let's make sure this is her. So we typed in the name, we went to candidates. Could be either of these, but usually this icon here shows a candidate. You might want to look at both of these. And so we get this page here. This is showing her as a contributor, but we want to see it as a candidate. You can go to which elections. You can look at who the top donors were. And this is nice because it sort of aggregates everything. So you can see you've got the iron workers in there, a lot of local, a lot of union support. And so you can go down, and so as you see here, it's taking all of those different records. We saw all of those individual records in the New York State database, and it's pushing them together and tallying it up, which makes it a lot easier to see who the big donors are here. A lot of locals. Good industries. Let's see, by industry. Any questions about any of those two? I know we went moving fast, but I want to get into the power mapping side of things. So those are just some examples of like raw databases where you can just like get a bunch of, if you want to look up the donations, you can find the information right there. Now I was thinking we can move into looking at the Little Sis database, which is our database where you can sign up for an account. You can do that now if you want. And you can either use it as a research database, just like we were doing with these, strictly for your own like interests in searching. We like if people attempt to become editors because we have a ton of national data in the database, but we can always use help building out like local and regional data sets in particular. So just to give you sort of a little overview of what it's like when you log in and you have an account. So this is my account. You can see all of my recent edits here. I've been doing a lot of research around New Orleans. See all of my different lists I've been making. You make like lists, research lists of interesting people. The different sort of power maps I've been making here. To of sort of how it works, we have our little internal search here. And I'm going to look up, well, I'll just stick what I know here, Jeremy Jacobs. And so this works as sort of like a Google for our site. It's going to pull up everything in the database that has Jeremy Jacobs Sr. That includes their profile page as well as any time that it's shown up on someone's map. So let's look at what the profile page looks like here. So this is a profile page on Little Sis, and like as you can see, very LinkedIn-y. Everything, all the relationships are arranged by type. And one thing that kind of sets us apart from Wikipedia is that we don't focus on like a lot of like narrative storytelling. We're really focused on outlining relationships here. It's all we're interested in. So we have these business positions, we'll go on other positions here, education, holdings, so he's the owner of the Boston Bruins. Often you'll see people have entered in either stock holdings or investments. You can see all of his family entered in here. And then the happy recipients of his campaign dollars. And so over here on the right, you can see all of the different source links. So like I said, LittleSis is a secondary source. So to add information, you have a primary source, like all of those databases we were just looking at. So you can actually go back, any of the information on this database, you can trace back to the original source and check it out. Everything is linked down, so you can actually say, so Jacobs Institute, which is a building named after Jeremy Jacobs, we can actually click on the small hyperlink here, and it's going to tell me everything about who entered this data, any notes that they may have added, and what the source link is. So if you're interested in that particular relationship, you can sort of backtrack that. Another cool thing about sort of orienting the data this way is that we can then ask the database using this interlocks button here to search across the database and tell us who are other people that serve on the same boards or has similar memberships, who work at the same organizations as Jeremy Jacobs. And so this is where we're starting to see that like interlocking Venn diagram of power come to life, right? So we see this guy Robert Brady, I think that's the Boo guy, sits on a couple of different councils with Jeremy Jacobs, as do some of these other folks here, including his son, and Satish is there. And if we actually navigate over to, let's look at the UP Council, which is a group that we would consider a power board because of all of the powerful folks sitting on it. If we look at the interlocks for this board, what we're basically asking is, given all the information in the database, what are other organizations that have a lot of overlap with this board? So the University of Buffalo Foundation, of course, but then we get into some interesting things like the Buffalo Niagara Partnership, which is sort of the local chamber of commerce. It's a big business, public policy. That's another big power board. It has a lot of influence here regionally. And of course, M&T Bank, Allright Knox, Buffalo Niagara Enterprise, and so on. So it's really a great tool to use, especially if you're doing some revolving door research, or again, if you want to see how a bunch of these networks all come together at some of these boards.